Hi, I'm James the Light Guy, and today we're going to see if we can modify this awful pod light that we reviewed in a previous video using these custom chips I referenced in one of my earliest videos. These should be able to fit inside quite nicely. Let's see if we can get this thing apart. We're going to start by taking our blade and working around the edge. Give me one sec. Now that I've got you guys zoomed in a little bit, we're just going to take the edge of our blade, fit it in between the metal housing and this lens, like that, and just work it around the perimeter, being very careful not to cut ourselves open. Alright, now that we've gone around the perimeter, that should have broken up the seal pretty well. Let me see if I can pry this open. Alright, that didn't go quite as easily as I had hoped, but it did come off. Alright, next we gotta grab a screwdriver and take out these two screws. And pull out this lens. There we go. Oh, now we can take a look at the inner workings. We skipped over it because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to open this during the original review video. We see capacitor, little microcontroller, some resistors here, and across here. Fairly basic stuff. Let's see, the board doesn't appear to be positively retained other than by the two screws that were going through the lens. Let's see if we can pull that off. There it goes. And there was no thermal paste on this. Let's slide the wires out. Alright, now we have a fairly large heatsink. How well do these things fit in here? Does that fit over the peg? It does not. Alright. So, we should be able to fit the two of them in like this. Well, probably keep positives on one side and negatives on the other. They won't be perfectly lined up, but they'll be good enough for this. Give me a minute to find my thermal compound and soldering tools. The first thing we're going to need to do is solder some jumpers from positive to positive and negative to negative. So let's grab some lengths of wire and get to it. The first wire I found on hand was this blue wire. We're going to use this for the positive, and we'll use black for the negative. Just made some short lengths and stripped the ends. We'll get some flux and solder them onto the first chip. Bump the camera. It's always a good sign. Also would have helped if I had turned this on in the first place. Let's give that a second to warm up. Using our little handy helper here, we'll tin the end of this wire. There we go. And we'll attach it to the board. Tip that down. my cable around. Probably should have put a little bit of flux on the board. One more moment. Alright, put a bit of flux and solder on the board. Now we'll see if we can get this wire to melt into it. Tell you what, the substrate on this chip is doing its job. My hand is getting real warm. There we go. Alright, let's do the same on the other side. Alright, we have the first panel set. Let's solder in the leads onto the second panel. Now, I actually want the leads to come around from the other side to have them fit in the housing better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder them, whoops, dropped it, backward so that once I fold it over, it'll be the correct orientation. I'll be back in just a sec. I desoldered and resoldered them so that they would be oppositely symmetrical, and now we just need to put our main leads to get out of the housing. So we're going to attach a negative wire down from this one to center and a positive from this one down center. Alright, let's get to it. I am so glad I didn't show you guys that soldering. It is a good thing that my profession is not anything to do with actual electrical work. Alright, let's route these wires through the middle and down through the back port of this housing. Twist there. Alright, let's check our fitment. Well, it looks like it fits. It's not the prettiest assembly I've ever made, but we have some progress. Let me find my thermal compound and we'll seat these onto the back. For thermal compound, we're going to be using this. I picked it up off Amazon and I will put a link in the description below. Application is very easy. We're just going to squeeze a small amount onto each of these panels. That's actually a bit excessive. And use the included spreader just to fan it out a little bit. When it comes to thermal compound, little goes a long way. You just want to fill the air gap between whatever you're heat sinking and the heat sink itself. It is better than an air gap, but worse than actual direct contact. And this will spread out when we put it on. We've got them in the housing. In order to positively affix them to the heatsink, we're just going to take this small screw and sink it into the middle between the panels, pinching them in place. Next, we're going to take our Dremel and cut out the center of this reflector and use the corners and bottom edges for more stability. There we go, we've knocked out the center, and now we can squeeze this back in and it will help hold down those chips. Now that I've got this pressed on, it's not sealed. In case something goes wrong, I can open it up and fix it. But let's grab our bench power supply and see what it looks like. We have our bench power supply at 14.4 volts and have our ground wire connected. Let's hook up our power wire. Now, unfortunately, you can possibly see over there, we are limited at about 10 amps. That's the max that this power supply can put out. But wow, is that bright. So we're currently at 130 watts and dropping because the power supply is struggling with this. It is getting fairly warm in my hand already. I mean, I think any use of this light for more than a half hour is going to be more powerful than this heat sinking can dissipate. But wow, is that impressive. Well, that's all I have for today's video. If you enjoyed this quick little build, give me that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more, share with your friends, and leave me a comment down below. Until next time, I'm James the Light Guy.